Today we have here is a RX100 carburetor, which we will be converting to a RX135 carburetor. We've got the kit from NATCO. This is the kit, you can see, kit from NATCO, and we are trying to figure out all the parts that has come with this and that we'll be using from this. There are a couple of parts, there are a few discrepancies, so we're fixing it. Now we are going to start reassembly of the carburetor. So here we are going to install the needle seat. So this is the needle seat and this is the needle. Now I'm going to put this here and gently tap it with a hammer until you feel a firm seating. Okay, see, it is seated down. As you can see from here, it is seated down over here. Then we're going to move on to the float bowl. The float bowl has its fuel stop key. Cleaned it with WD-40 carb cleaner, anything you can use. And now install this float key. Make sure there are no grimes and dirt over this surface, otherwise it will never seal correctly. You screw it down here, nothing fancy here, just need to screw it down. Done. Don't tighten it all the way, keep it loose so that air can come in. When the overflow pipes starts to overflow petrol, you can just tighten it up on the bike itself. Next we are going to install the needle seat here. Here we have our needle. This is our old needle, this is our new needle. So you can see the differences in the top, why you have upgraded to the newer needle. This is a smaller main jet, this is a bigger main jet. Now we have to clip this into here. These are the two components we need while setting this up again. So it goes like this. Goes like this. First, put the circlip onto the needle. Put it at this highest position or the center position. You can adjust it later on if you are having throttle issues. Adjust the needle later on also. Just use a plier, push it into place to put the circlip here. Next step is put this tiny little washer, brass washer, onto the needle, just like that. And here we have a throttle cable holder, and we'll gently put it back as so into it. This is seated now. Okay, there is another circlip here which holds this needle together, and we'll just have to push it down into it. There is no rocket science involved, just push it down until it clicks. You just push it down and rotate it like this. Okay, so this is seated. All done. This is seated quite firmly. Put a little bit of WD-40 here. Make sure it rotates freely here. Lube it up a little bit. Make sure it rotates freely here. And keep it here. Let it settle down. Next, we are going to be installing the main jet. This is the main jet. This is the main jet of a RX135. As you can see, I will show you the old one. So this is the old one. You can see the difference, a huge hole difference in the main jet. Now we're gonna installing the main jet. Main jet installed. Okay, the main jet has been installed. Now we move on to our idle jet, or the pilot jet, which we call. And the pilot jet is responsible for your idle, and down whenever you leave off the throttle, the main jet is responsible for your fueling. So this is the main jet, pilot jet. You can see it's a very tiny hole. Can you see? It's a very tiny hole. When the old one, it's almost the same. So I'm just got a new one. I'm just gonna replace it. Although not necessary every time to replace the pilot jet, but it's a good habit to put in new parts. So tighten it up nicely with a small screwdriver. Don't put too much of torque, not necessary. Just tighten it up till you feel it's tight enough. And tight this one. It's a 8mm socket. Done. Snug and tight. Next is we are going to install the float ball and the float control. So the float control is responsible for cutting off the supply of fuel after your float ball is full of fuel. So installing this. For this, first you need to install the gasket. Here we have a brand new gasket. Although the old one seemed fine, but if you notice the thickness, it has squeezed out quite a bit. So we use a new gasket. We put it right over here. Put it right over here. And you screw this thing on. Sometimes they can be a little bit finicky. It's new. Put this in a little bit and then tighten another. Okay, done. Now you can thread it in here. Okay, just catch the thread, just tighten it up. Snug it out. After I've installed this, put a little bit of carb clean. Make sure everything is still nice and clean. Now we install the float pin. So this tiny little guy is called the float pin. So it's always change this. This is a very common part failure point. Just install it here. It goes just like this. It's a small pin, just goes just like this. Okay. And here we have to install the float butterfly. Sits here, and so to install this, you just have to put the pin right where it belongs, back where it belongs. Sorry. Put the pin here. Okay, the pin is installed. Okay, this is all the movement that we need in this. Actually, I don't think this is right. So we installed the float bowl properly. Took me a while, I won't lie, to this pin over here. If you see very nicely, look at this pin over here. Look at this pin over here. Once the float ball fills, this pin should be all the way seated, otherwise your carburetor will leak fuel. So we had to adjust this tab over here a little bit, bend it inside out, so that we have to bend this tab a little bit inside out, so that now that this is supposed the carburetor will sit like this, and the float ball has no fuel. Once the float ball starts getting fuel, this little pin over here, carefully observe this pin over here, this pin over here will get pushed up, and it will stop the fuel flow from the tank as not overflowing the carburetor. This is done. Meter screw, nothing fancy here, just goes in like this. Okay, screw it in all the way. We'll adjust it later. For starters, we screw it in all the way. Done. Screwed in all the way. Next is the idle air control screw. Here we have the old idle air control screw, and this is not a very specific part that goes bad, so I'm just going to reuse this. We also have a brand new idle air control screw. You know what, let's install the new one. I'll show you how to install it. Let's install the new one. Again with this glue. I'm going to install it here, right over here. Install it right over here. So push it in, screw the thing into it. You can see, as we keep on screwing it in, it introduces the lever inside the carburetor, which in turn pushes this valve up, allowing more air and fuel to go into the combustion chamber. For now, we'll crank it out all the way and wait. Let's crank it out all the way. We install this. Next on our list of parts to install is this O-ring, which is very important. This goes on the top cap. Put it like this, put a dab of oil over it, lubricate the things properly before installing. Okay, this is ready. Next we have is our choke lever mechanism. So this is the old choke lever mechanism out of our old bike, old carburetor, of course. And this is the new choke lever mechanism. Actually, in the weather we live in, we don't really need the choke until and unless it's tropical weather here. Don't really need the choke much, but we're gonna install it anyway. I know purists would be saying you should always start your bike on choke, this and that. I say if you have a healthy engine, the bike will fire right up, given that you are not in a very cold climate. Okay, we'll be just reusing this old choke cable, nothing fancy here. Just slide it in like this. Okay, and turn it, and this locks into place. The cable right through. Okay, put it here. Slide the cable onto the choke. Put this right back where it belongs. Okay, now we have a working choke cable. So to test the choke, whether it's working or not, what you should do, you should put a little bit of WD-40. Okay, when I press the choke, it should come right out of here. As you can see, it's coming out. So that's a working choke cable. Let's tighten. So carefully extract the gasket right from here. Make sure you don't have any sort of bend while you're extracting the gasket. Okay, here we have a gasket. Put a little bit of WD-40 on the mating surfaces, just like this. It is help soak up the surface. Since this is a paper corkscrew gasket, it's better to make it seat properly. Just a simple process. Assembly step is just to put the cover back on. So put the cover back on. Use good hardware for these. These are M4 screws. If anybody wants to know what's the thread size, you can use any sort of M4 screws, probably 12 to 15 mm in length. Just tighten these bolts up. Once you feel that the bowl is seated, snug it in one at a time, not all the way, just you have to crush the gasket in such a way it does not leak. So now you tighten it all the way. So last step but not the least, we have to install the new spring that comes with the kit. Install the spring here. This will go here, and throttle cable will go right here. For now, we're just gonna install it and leave it in. I'm gonna put the throttle cable afterwards, and there you go. Nicely is done. RX135 carburetor rebuilt. All done.